unity. No, tukademu. Rejecting Gaddafi's United States of Africa. A question everyone is asking. Why General Kaguta Museveni is amplifying for one East African community but rejects Gaddafi's United States of Africa? Why? The answer is because General Kaguta Museveni in East Africa, he wants to be the emperor. He wants to be the king in East Africa. He wants to be the commander. He wants to command. He wants to give rules. He wants to give orders. And he can give orders and rules. He can be the king and the emperor in East Africa. Yo? But in Africa, in one Africa, he will never be those. But he will be the governor. So, he fears to be a governor than being an emperor. He'd rather be an emperor of East Africa community than being a governor in one Africa as a united Africa, as per Gaddafi. Because the gentleman, General Kaguta Museveni Muzei, is saying, preaching to Africa, to East Africans, that when East Africa becomes one, there will be more markets for Ugandans, for Kenyans, for Tanzanians, for Rwandians, for Burundians, for Congolians, for everyone. There will be free movement and there will be markets for their producers. So this will make East Africa a developed community. But he's against the United States of Africa. It's like only East Africa is the one that can have more markets than Africa, United States of Africa. That when uniting is as East Africans, there will be more markets, there will be free movements, trade will be easier, you make more money. But when you become as United States of Africa, there will be no markets, you will not make money. The reason is just simple. He wants to rule over East Africa, and he will not rule over Africa. He always wants to be the bull in the cloud. In Africa, he will not be the bull in the cloud. No. So he don't want to go there. He only wishes to stay in the East Africa community because there will be the master and others will be the subjects. That's the main reason. Because if we are fighting for more markets, for economic growth, if you are fighting for the better trade, fair trade, as Africans, we need to unite and be one, as per Gaddafi. One Africa that will make Africa great, that will make Africa strong, that will make Africa prosperous. But General Museveni doesn't want that. He only wants East Africa. This is his message. Why he prefer East Africa.
Have you heard of East Africa? Because you are stuck with your products. Have you heard of East Africa? Because you are busy with the tribes. Some people are telling you, we, as Banyankore, we, as Baganda, we, as Acholi, some of those pharaohs are busy telling you about the tribes. If you go Abasoga Bene, we are this one, as this one. But why don't we solve if those are enough? Why do we have a problem of surplus milk, surplus sugar, surplus this? And this is where the NRM said, have you heard of East Africa? Have you heard of Africa? Why don't you check whether they can buy what we produce and also buy what they produce? Indeed, as I speak now, East Africa and Africa are already buying parts of our surpluses. Otherwise, these sectors of the economy would have collapsed by now.
Now, if it's the question, have you heard of East Africa? Have you heard of Africa? Now, why not fighting for one Africa? And we leave behind East Africa. Because General Museveni is fighting tribes that are useless and nonsensical. They are of no value. You know, that East Africa as one, that's great. That's a plus. Because that's a big community than tribes. Yes, true. But again, have you heard of Africa? Why are you so centered on East Africa? Because here East Africa is so small. We need Africa as one. Yes. With Africa, we will have big markets, bro. More markets, bro. Wider markets, bro. Trade will be so great. We'll make more money. Everywhere, people will be able to trade with anyone, anywhere in Africa, rather than confining ourselves in East Africa. So, why are you not dropping East Africa and go for Africa? General Kaguta Museveni. A question needs an answer. He will never answer you that question because in Africa he will not be a king. Muammar Gaddafi, before he was assassinated, before he was killed, before he was executed, before he was murdered, he was championing the United States of Africa. That was his agenda. And some say, allegedly, that's the reason why he was killed.
My mission is to encourage my brothers and wake up the African peoples to unify our continent, Africa. Since 1963, the hero of the African unity, Kwame Nkrumah, wanted to unify Africa since that time in one state, one government. My mission.
You heard him. His mission was to unify Africa. And General Museveni is against that. His mission is to unify East Africa. Is the same guy complaining of tribes, you know, that they are small cliques. You can't feel proud of your tribes because they are too small. They can't add anything on the development of Africa. But again, it's the same guy just rotating around East Africa and not opening to Africa. Why? Because when you just click yourself on East Africa and you don't open yourself to Africa, you are none the less like that gentleman or woman who is believing in his or her tribe. Yes, General Museveni, for him believing in only East Africa, is also believing in his tribe as an East African. And there is no difference between him and another guy who is believing in his tribe. Because again, East Africa is smaller to Africa. Therefore, we need Africa, not East Africa. Museveni there will fight you and say, no. We need East Africa. This is a story in Daily Monitor. President Museveni on Thursday renewed his long-standing call for East African Federation, positioning regional political and economic unity as the continent's most viable route to prosperity and strategic security, but once again dismissed the late Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi's vision of United States of Africa as impractical. Why impractical? If uniting Africa as United States of Africa is impractical, that means even uniting East Africa as East African Community is impractical. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah. As one of the few surviving leaders, spanning both pre- and post-independence liberation struggles, Museveni delivered a historically anchored pitch for regional integration during the reading of Uganda 2025-2026 national budget at Kororo Independence Ground. His lengthy remarks sought to invoke Africa's post-colonial dreams while warning against the illusion of unity without practical, economically viable structures. Let me start with the more important question of the political federation of East Africa and the possible other federation in other parts of Africa. Museveni said, framing the issue through the ideological lineage of Pan-Africanists. Such a web, Du Bois and Marcus Garvey, alongside liberation leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, and Jomo Kenyatta. But unlike Nkrumah and Gaddafi, who advocated for a centralized African superstate, Museveni, one of the world's longest-serving leaders, turning 81 this September, supports a bottom-up approach to federations based on regional realities and democratic principles. That is it. Have you heard of Africa? Have you heard of Africa? He asked rhetorically, cautioning that shared identity alone can't substitute for structural unity. His preferred model, the East African Community, revived in 1999 and now comprising 8 countries: Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Somalia, was held up as a foundation for eventual political federation. But are they united? No. With appropriation exceeding 300 million and a combined GDP over $300 billion, the bloc is seen as one of Africa's most promising for economic integration. If it is fully implemented, economic integration will address the issue of prosperity, noted Uganda's president since 1986. However, he added, prosperity alone is not sufficient, as Africa also needs strategic security. Never again should its people be threatened by anybody, having gone through the 5 countries of the slave trade, colonialism, and neocolonialism. Museveni also reminded the audience that the East Africa region has once stood on the cups of political federation but faltered. In 1963, we were about to achieve the political federation of East Africa. You can see the declination by our leaders. However, along the way, some of them developed proliferate, he called it. That is why Mwalimu Nyerere and Mzee Karume must be held as some of the most devoted Africans that have ever lived, he emphasized. Okay. Museveni argued that had the federation metallized, many of the region's crises could have been avoided. But the guys who are in this region are the ones who's causing these crises. Are the real men who are in this federation. Who is someone from out? Why don't you stop it? Certainly, I don't want that one. Where I want. Museveni outlined in two historical missions, prosperity and strategic security, underpinned by four ideological principles: patriotism, Pan-African socio-economic transformation, and democracy. Using Uganda's own agricultural surplus as an example, he stressed the urgency of intra-African trade. Yes, we need it. Prosperity can also come from producing a good or a service and selling it sustainably, he said. In a symbolic moment, Museveni juxtaposed Africa's internal disunity with the global space race, coming to dimensional strategic security. Only 4 countries have been to the moon. These are the US, Russia, China, and India. Can Uganda manage serious space programs even when it becomes first world country? He asked. As we tried to answer that question, there was already an answer given by our elder before independence. This was Uhuru na Umoja, freedom and unity. That unity, Museveni suggested, is not continental in theory but regional in application. The internal market is not enough, he said. That's how the ruling NRM identified the second. Okay. Museveni is pro-East Africa but against Africa unity. Okay, let's have this, the last one. Let's have this. The international market is not enough. Okay. Why? It is because you need it for your prosperity. Widely regarded as a senior statesman with considerable influence beyond Uganda's borders, Museveni's voice carries weight in regional affairs, reflecting his long tenure and a deep involvement in East African political land. But no way for one Africa, yes, but there is way for one East Africa, one Sadaka, one Central Africa, like that, one North Africa, which is also nonsense. If we are to protect Africa, be safer, free from wars, Africa to prosper, we must be a united Africa, one country with one president. Yes, that's how we will stop these self-entitled presidents from killing Africans. Yes, and that's how Africa will become the superpower. Yes, and that's how Africa will become rich. But now, as we have these self-entitled presidents, Africa will never grow.